Hello, my name's Kyle. I know it's been a while since the last time I posted a podcast episode on Midnight Paranormal Files podcast. Yes, that's what the podcast is called. Today, I want to talk about my hometown called Wisconsin Rapids. The reason why we haven't really done many podcast episodes in the past few months is because we've been busy with the YouTube channel and stuff like that, getting more content out for that. But since it's winter time and we don't have as many investigations at this time of year, then we do the podcast and everything else and focus on that. Now, Wisconsin Rapids has a pretty long history, for, in matter of fact, when I was researching this. And there was a bunch of floods and stuff, which I knew about from learning about it back in school, in elementary school and stuff like that. Um, so let's begin. Europeans began to settle this area in the 1830s. Wisconsin Rapids has been known by this name only since the 1920s. Prior to that, the community was divided by the Wisconsin River, and the Wisconsin River divides the state in half, basically, for the most part, unless if you go way in the northern part of the state. So just keep that in mind. With the west side incorporated as Centralia and the east side as Grand Rapids. Fast forward to early October of 1900, the Wisconsin River water levels had risen to record heights, wreaking havoc on the citizens of Grand Rapids. Although water levels are known and expected to fluctuate, these levels have not been recorded since the 1880s. So you're talking about 20 years, pretty much. With the water levels sitting at 12.5 feet above what was the record meant to be, the effects of the flood were felt by nearly every Grand Rapids citizen, with farmers losing crops for the year, and the water rushed into basements and cellars, rising over to 3 feet high. Some of the areas of Old Town downtown are rumored to be haunted. Now, I know some of these locations. One of the places is called Holly Rocks Bar. It's still there today. Some of these buildings are not there anymore. So I'm just going to tell everybody that right now. And they're replaced by parks. Holly Rocks Bar used to be a mortuary for the dead. And they say that some of them are still here. Talked to the owner, and he said that the activity happens at 3 a.m. until 6 a.m. And what happens is glass gets thrown down behind the bar, lights flicker, seen fooled by apparitions, and other things. Besides speaking of the dead, we are going to be talking about our next location. Now, the next location, we are going to probably be doing a video next year on YouTube for it. And this location is called Forest Hill Cemetery. Now, Forest Hill Cemetery is a pretty big cemetery. It is a cemetery, of course, as you heard. And there are a few things that is haunted about it. Like the person that created Betty Boop is buried there. Fun fact for you. And he's also one of the famous people of the town, or one of the most famous people from this town. But let's talk about the spirit side of the cemetery. Now, what is believed to be haunted is the infant section, and people heard babies crying there. People seen heard phantom sounds of the babies crying, I meant to say. Sorry about that. Apparitions, voices that call out people's names upon the living, and a monument that causes mechanical objects to fail, pretty much. Now, we talked about this place before in the podcast before. And This place is called the Hotel Mead. And back in the 1950s, we talked about this before on the podcast, I'm pretty sure. Um, this place, the bar part used to be in the basement. So keep that in mind. And uh, at back then, somebody got shot and murdered there, supposedly, but we're not going to be talking about that because I already talked about that. If you know what I'm saying. But let's talk about a school in town that's probably the most famous location that's haunted in town. You'll be wondering to yourself, what is this place that I'm talking about? Or whatever. No, the place that I'm talking about is called the First Ward School. Now, the First Ward School wasn't there in the late 1800s. It was just an idea. It was non existent yet, and the schools around the area became overcrowded, so they needed a new school and state of the art on top of it, besides, and will be like nothing else in the area. It would be heated and also have electricity, which at the time was just a new invention. A lot of people wouldn't have years to come for electricity, of course. Um, the school would have a lot of technology involved put into it, like blackboards, adjustable seats, just to name a few things. The bricks would be made on site. There were 4 large classrooms. The school was completed by 1896, would be used to teach kindergarten through 6th grade originally. Originally named Irving School in 1902 after the author Washington Irving. In 1910, in 1910, the bell tower got struck by lightning and was expensive, so they never replaced it. The number of students increased over the years. The students was forced to be used up to 3rd grade. The teachers were nuns. They lived in the attic of the school. The nuns began seeing strange things at the school and kept a log of activity, supposedly, that occurred. The log has not been found. In 1979, the building was abandoned. Nobody knows what happened to this log or anything, so it's still missing to this day. The building was abandoned, of course, and later bought by the Libines family in December of 2010. Justin lives in the school among with his spiritual occupants. Betty is one of them. Oscar is another one. Miss Holiday is one of the old teachers, and Mike, who is the old janitor that used to work there, and maybe the other occupants that still are there to this day. Um, Now we'll talk about Oscar first. Oscar was a special needs boy due to his disabilities. He was often bullied, ridiculed. One day, Oscar was found hanging in the attic. It is not known if Oscar has done it to or if bullies did it, and no documents of this case was found for him. Betty was only a young child when she was waiting for this bus. A car got too close, caught her dress, dragged her down the road, and that's how she died, pretty much, which is really sad. The third person, Miss Holiday, we talked about her. She was a teacher. Also makes many appearances at the school to this day. Um, Nobody knows what happened to Miss Holiday. Maybe she loved her job so much that she still wants to work there. Who knows? Mike, the janitor and maintenance guy, had a shop in the basement of the school. Those are the spirits most people see who go visit First Ward School. And Justin has encountered them as well. The things that happen here, disembodied voices is one of the things, are heard throughout the building. Footsteps, objects moving around, and of course, shadowy figures. The next location is like this one, but it's more of a house. And you're probably wondering to yourself, was this house or whatever? The homestead, built in 1897 by Arthur Hefferman. It was basically a farm, had cattle, pigs, farm animals. Basically, Arthur died in the house with another person on the funeral, were healed inside the house. There's more ghosts supposedly there. I don't have much information about the location besides the activity and stuff like that. And the activity is footsteps, uh, voices throughout the building, shadowy figures, and stuff like that. Um, and those are the haunted locations in Wisconsin Rapids. Now, I figured to talk about them because I thought they were really interesting locations. And I don't know what everybody else thinks, but there's quite a few haunted locations. Um, I could talk about the museum that could be haunted because that is where the guy that created Betty Boop, which, if you don't know, Betty Boop was a 1930s cartoon back in the day. Um, that was his house that's now a museum here in town. There's a bunch of Betty Boop memorabilia and the Cranberries uh, history and stuff like that. And some Civil War stuff here and there, but mostly Cranberries and Betty Boop. Um, that house might be haunted too. Who knows? The art buildings in downtown of Wisconsin Rapids might be haunted because of the flooding. Who knows? Uh, but anyway, I'll leave it up to everybody, and you can decide on what houses are haunted and what houses aren't. All I know is that probably three-quarters of the houses around here are haunted where I live. And I'll leave it up to you, and I hope you like this episode of this podcast. And I'll talk to everybody in the next episode of the podcast.